Hello and welcome. Great, thank you for being here. I want to talk about just a couple of ways that we have seen the work of ODEE grow in the past year. One is in this physical space, which is brand new to us. It's called the Innovation Center. It was developed as part of a grant from the Ohio Department of Education, a program called College Ready Ohio that is being run by Corey Tressler and his team. And it's designed to help upper-level high school students prepare for and be successful in college. So we're working with teachers on developing digital content and digital pedagogies to prepare their students for college. That's happening with 10 districts across the state. We're very excited about it. And this space is being used as classroom space about half of the time, and it's being used as training space for events with those teachers across the state and with Ohio State faculty, staff, and students. So if you're doing educational programming and are interested in using this space, let us know. If you would like to teach in this space, it is part of our Innovative Spaces program, which is run by Sam Craighead. And that is a program that helps us pair faculty who are interested in learning to or already know how to teach using active learning pedagogies and want to be in a room that supports that. So we have a number of different spaces we can match you with, and we provide training for faculty who would like to do that. So this is our newest and largest active learning space, and we're happy to host the event here today. We also have been partnering with the Institute for Teaching and Learning that was kicked off by Dr. Drake this year. Kay Halasek is going to present. She is also the director of the Institute for Teaching and Learning, and we've been partnering with them to support a cohort of about 70 new faculty this year in really engaging with each other and with mentors around kind of conversations about teaching and best practices in teaching and learning. So that's exciting for us. And then, if you haven't heard, we have a new LMS this year that is delightful. We had hoped, we sat for a long time trying to figure out what numbers we could guess at. We hoped that we would have 5% of our community in Canvas this summer and 30% in autumn. We actually had 40% of all courses in an LMS running out of Canvas this summer and 70% right now. So much, much bigger numbers than we have anticipated. That team has done a tremendous job of standing up an LMS that provides really nearly all of the functionality that it took us 10 years to build up and desire to learn. So I'm very proud of them. They're running 2 LMSs side by side. We also thank you for your work in transitioning your materials to a new system. And that is what we are here to highlight tonight, is the innovative work of a handful of faculty who are doing some really interesting things in Canvas. So I'm excited to hear from them about the adoptions that they've done in Canvas, and let that spark some conversations with the rest of us over the course of the evening. And then I want to just mention one other opportunity, which is our Affordable Learning Exchange, led by Ashley Miller and her team, and that in partnership with the library's undergraduate student government, OAA, and UCAT. And that is a program designed to support faculty who would like to replace course materials with low or no cost instructional content. And we provide between $1,000 and $24,000 grants for people to do that. The first cohort through is going to be saving students $1 million in course material fees in this first year. So very high impact. We gave out 17 grants last year. So the RFP closes on September 30th. Ashley is there, wave your hand. Mike Shiflett, Alexis, Stephanie, a whole bunch of folks here who can talk to you if you're interested in doing that. And you can learn more at affordablelearning.osu.edu. So we're, again, very excited for the event. I'm really glad you're all here, and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
All right, thank you. All right, hi, I'm Jessica Phillips. I'm a senior instructional designer in OD, and I'm also the co-chair of Innovate for 2017. So this is one of our first events leading up toward that larger conference. And so as we're thinking about this sort of culture of innovation and the ways that we want to highlight the faculty, the students, the staff who are pioneers, it really comes down to thinking about the why. So why are we doing the work that we're doing? What's the impact that we want to make? And oftentimes that impact is on our students, it's on each other, it's on our institution, it's on our community, it's on our world. And so I'm really excited to announce that the Innovate 2017 theme is impact. And so we will be looking for innovations in the classroom and beyond that make an impact, whether it is on our students or the world, whatever those things may be, where you're driving things forward and there's real change happening. We're excited to hear about it, and we want to bring those things into the Innovate program and the Innovate conference. So you can expect to see some more information on the Innovate conference, which is in May of 2017 in the next several months. The RFP will be coming out this fall, so soon here we'll be putting out a request for proposals, and we'll be really excited to hear what sorts of ideas are happening here at Ohio State that are making an impact, and also beyond Ohio State. And I'm excited we actually have some folks here this evening from other institutions, and I hope that continues to be the case and we see more institutions at Innovate this year as well. So keep your eyes open. A couple websites to look at, innovateu.osu.edu, and if you are on the Twitter, as I like to call it, at innovateu, we'll also have updates on things that are happening there with Innovate. So I have the honor of being your guide for the event this evening, so I want to give you a sense of the flow of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to begin with our 4 incredible presenters. You're going to hear them mention the why. You're going to hear some of that impact shining through their presentations as well. So we're going to kick off with those 4 folks coming up and talking about the amazing work that they're doing, and I want to just sort of reiterate the courage that it takes them to come up and speak with you this evening about their work, because they are literally in the weeds right now. These are things that they have been practicing and trying to drive forward, and they're about 3 or 4 weeks into it right now. So they have embraced the messiness and the opportunity that has come out of the new LMS using Canvas and some of the new tools. And so these are not stories of shining achievements. These are stories of people who are trying new things and embracing the hecticness that might come from that. So thank you for being with them as you hear these stories. So as you're listening, you probably are going to have a lot of questions, things that you want to hear more about. And so the second half of the event tonight will allow you to talk one-on-one or in small groups with these presenters. And so we'll talk more about the logistics of that, but write down your questions, write down things that you'd like to talk and hear more about, and you'll have the opportunity to do that at the second half of the event today. All right. And with, I want to also mention, before I forget, you're going to see some other really innovative things happening tonight. Scott Sheeler, our amazing ed tech specialist, he is going to be doing something called sketchnoting during the presentations. Has anybody heard of sketchnoting or graphic recording before? Okay. So Scott is basically going to graphically represent some of the concepts and ideas that are being presented by the presenters tonight. And so he's going to find any space in this room that he can write on to make that happen. And so you'll see, I think, some cool things come from that. If you're not able to see everything that Scott notes, that's okay, because you'll have an opportunity to walk around later and take a look at it. So should be pretty exciting, I think. So with no further ado, our first presenter is Kay Halasek. She is Associate Professor of English and Director of the University Institute for Teaching and Learning. She's a graduate of the University of Texas, Austin, and she's been faculty at OSU for 27 years. Woo. She first ventured into the topics of collaborative pedagogy and peer review in computer-based classrooms in 1988, and has been refining and remediating her approaches to peer review ever since. Her current work in progress, interrogating peer review as proxy, reimagining and reframing peer response as connected practice, includes discussion of many of the topics that she will be speaking to this evening. So for you, Kay will outline the peer review development processes and resources to demonstrate collaborative learning capabilities in Carmen Canvas. And Kay, here's the clicker for you.
It's very nice to see you all. I've seen some of you frequently, occasionally on campus. The Institute is well underway. I think that's a lot of the opportunities I've had to meet with many of you. But I am here really today in my capacity as the director of the second-year writing program, which is a program I lead in the English department that trains our graduate students and works with our lecturers to create innovative pedagogies. And the peer review pedagogy that I'm going to be talking with you about today is one I actually began and piloted last spring, but not in a writing course, in one of our upper division English classes. And so if you talk with me a little bit later, I'll have some additional resources for you in the living room, which is the space over here. And I'll be able to share those additional resources with you virtually. We have some video support and some text documentation that you can use if you're interested in picking up peer response or peer review in your own teaching. Now, peer review as an academic practice began as early as the 1880s in the US in English departments, but has a long history across disciplines. And in fact, recent research tells us that peer review actually has equal or greater impact on students undertaking it in other disciplines, in content areas. Because peer review and the collaborative act of peer reviewing helps with content retention, knowledge retention, as well as building communities among the students as themselves co-investigators, right? I mean, we use this in chemistry. We use it in all of the sciences. It's a common practice, that is the collaboration. The question is then how do we use peer response and peer review, and how do we do that in Canvas? One of the things I just want to introduce to you very briefly and can talk with you a little bit about later then is what are some of the best practices for peer review? Model and practice it frequently in your classroom. And you can do this face-to-face or you can do it through Canvas. You can do it virtually with students in the Carmen Connect hours, right? So it doesn't even have to be an alphabetic review. It can be a conversational review. Also provide multiple opportunities. Now this is the best, this is sort of the, if I go wholesale with this and if I develop this for an entire course, you need to do, it's helpful to do it frequently, to provide guidelines, to use it in low stakes opportunities for students, but it's also important to incentivize it. Now you can incentivize it by giving it points, you can incentivize it by encouraging and valuing it in your own comments and by modeling it yourself in your classroom or in Canvas. So there are a number of ways you can do that. And the other thing, and I want to emphasize this too, is peer review in and of itself as a solitary practice only gets us into the point where students are being active. What we want to do is move students to the point of being constructive with one another and in their knowledge and interactive. So peer review is an active method. How do we move it then and use it along an entire course arc in constructive and interactive fashion? So I can talk with you again more about that. And then the other is so important is share with students your own experiences with peer review, maybe the good and the bad, but also talk with them about the value of peer review and peer response in your disciplines and the professions that are related to your profession or to your disciplines. Because that is an incentive, right? That's another way of incentivizing peer review. In implementing peer review in Canvas, as I said, you can scale up and do an entire course. If that's a little too intimidating from the very beginning, you can think about this in at least 3 different stages. If you just want to use the discussion boards, you may already be doing this. If you have students, for example, post a research question, and then you require the students to give 3 or 5, respond to 3 or 5 of those, that's peer response. Right? That's a way of engaging students actively with one another and maybe constructing knowledge with one another, right? Because what they do then is interact with one another in those spaces. So that's the first potential step. The other would be to use the student groups function in Canvas, where you'd put them in smaller groups, and then that group might collaborate or work collectively on peer review. So it doesn't have to be a one-on-one peer review, right? You could have 4 or 5 students collaborate with one another through a student group to provide peer review. And then finally, you can use the peer review function, which exists in the assignments tool in Canvas, right? So you'd have to go in through assignments, and I can quickly show you that. It's not too deeply embedded. Finally, I want to just mention to you that there are barriers to this. There are barriers to successful peer review. One of the most significant, I think, is the students' own past experiences with peer review and their assumptions about peer review. and perhaps our own assumptions about whether peer review does or doesn't work as an instructional methodology or practice in the classroom. So validating it, demonstrating it, giving them multiple opportunities for doing that will help them perhaps overcome those years of perhaps very unsuccessful peer reviews that they might have had when they were in high schools. I do have a number of resources, as I said, that I'll be able to show you a little bit later. But at this point, that is my sort of opening spiel. And I hope to see some of you in a little bit. And I think Amy is next, but I give it back to Jessica.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you. All right. What I really took away from your presentation, one of my favorite things that you said was your mention of just starting small, just to try it, just to kind of get your feet wet, maybe even just in a discussion forum if you're not doing that already, just to start letting the students have conversations about their topics or give each other feedback there. So just kind of, I like to think of it as like putting your toe in the water, just kind of get there little by little. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So our next presenter is Amy Yelk. Amy Yelk is a registered nurse with clinical expertise in emergency nursing. In 2009, she earned her master's degree in nursing education from Indiana Wesleyan University and is currently in the Doctorate of Nursing Nursing Practice program at The Ohio State University. Amy joined the OSU College of Nursing. Where is Amy? There she is. Okay, I'm gonna make eye contact here at some point. She has collaborated with ODI throughout the last year, reinventing or redeveloping courses in the RN to BSN program with a desire to incorporate creative assignments and enhance learning. So I have to say, because I love how this is worded, Amy tonight is going to share with you how to fail creatively in the name of innovation when experimenting and implementing new tools inside Carmen campus.
Thank you. I really, really hope you guys don't fail. But yes, my presentation's called Falling Outside the Box, which doesn't really give you any kind of clue as to what I'm talking about, so it's a little bit cryptic. But honestly, I chose Falling Outside the Box because we're all taught, think outside the box, think innovatively. But thinking doesn't get you anywhere. You have to have the action behind it. So something had to happen to make you fall outside the box, whether you're getting pushed, whether you took that step, whatever it is, you're falling outside the box. Hopefully you land safely and successfully, but there's going to be chances when we take that risk that we do fail. So I'm going to talk to you about one of the ways that I have fallen outside the box. And it had a little mixed reviews, but what Kay talked about and what I heard, starting small, I had a big dream. I did my online education from Indiana Wesleyan. It was all online, asynchronous. Start teaching asynchronous online. You can only do so many discussion boards and writing in your lifetime. And you need to explore more. And I thought online learning could be a lot more robust. So my dream is to implement role-playing in an asynchronous online course. That's a big thing to chunk off. So I started simply. I worked with the instructional designer at ODI and started really simply. What you see on the screen here across the top is just the standard toolbar that you'll find in Canvas. Just the standard toolbar. The one that has the numbers on it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, those are some options when you set up an assignment. And using those two things, I was able to create a role-playing activity between me and the student. We're not at that full, I want to have the student interaction and that stuff. I want to have the students evaluating the students and them interacting together, but I had to start smaller. So when I landed, it didn't hurt quite as bad. So with that being said, those two little things that became up highlighted, the red box and the star, are the two tools that I used in creating this. I set up instructions that gave the guidelines for the students on what they needed to do, but then I used the little tool that's in the square box to create a video. Now I hate being on video, but I had to be the person that was presenting. I was role-playing. The situation we had was a patient was harmed because teamwork, collaboration, and communication fell apart. And so I was the healthcare worker, the coworker that was being aggressive and confrontational, and then the students had to react to that. And so I was the only one seeing their video at the time, but I wanted to make it safe for them. And they had specific rules they had to go through, and we can look at those rules later if you want to, but they had specific rules that they had to go through. And then using the part with the star, the number 3 up there, media recordings, I limited how they could submit their assignment to me. And I know that goes against universal design, but for this activity, it's worth it. So I used those 2 tools there that are built into Canvas to take what could have been a watch this video, tell me how you think you would have reacted, and how did you handle this in the future, written paper, into getting to see them actually react to the situation. And then they had to reflect back on it. The other box that I have up there I'm showing you, because if you happen to run a synchronous course online, it's even better because you can use conferences. It's just right there, it's built in. I haven't gotten a chance to do it because I teach asynchronously. So some of the ways to reduce the impact or risk of failing is keep it low stakes. Kay mentioned it too. Keep it low stakes. This assignment that I did was worth 5 points. They could only lose points if I couldn't see them, if they appeared not to take it seriously, or they seemed overly rehearsed because I wanted them to give me an immediate response to what they me basically attacking them in that sense. So I kept it very low stakes. If they completed the assignment and they looked like they tried at it, they got their points for it. But one of the biggest things is be transparent. I was very upfront with the students. This is something new I'm trying. This is why I'm trying it. I think it can be a more robust learning environment. Let's try something new. Would you rather do this or write a paper? Most of the time they'll choose this, even though they hate being on video too. I told them I wanted their feedback. I want to be able to hear what they have to say. How can I make this better? How can I make this, improve for you? And they were strangely silent. One said, I hated it. I hate myself on video. Please don't ever do this again. And then I got some positive ones. Hey, this really made me reflect back on how I react to people. So the learning happened that I was hoping that would happen, at least with the positive responses I got. Like I said, dream big. You may have to start small, though, and this was my start small. So this semester, I am working on developing role play within the discussion boards, where we'll do it within the discussion boards so the students will have the student-to-student interaction and the reflection piece on how they're doing it. So check back with me. That'll run spring of 17, so check back with me summer, and I'll let you know how it went. And then you say, and you ask, what if I fall? Oh, my darling, but what if you fly, from Erin Hansen? And I want to add on to it, but or at least land on your feet. Come on. But I want to encourage you guys, try and make it a little more robust, have fun, and just, have fun with it. Push buttons, try different things, so, yeah.
Thank you, Amy. That was wonderful. Thanks for sharing the likes and the dislikes and just the general. This was the experience for what it was. Wonderful. So our next presenter is Ty Shepfer. Now you may want to take note. Ty was actually at the OSU game in Oklahoma over the weekend. So if you have any questions about that, he'll be able to answer them for you. So Ty is a senior lecturer of management and human resources at the Max M. Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University. Ty teaches business environment and skills, which is part of the core business curriculum, and HR strategic management. He also serves on Fisher College's alumni board and is an advisor to an undergraduate student organization. So Ty will be explaining a lot about the rubrics tool in Carmen Canvas and how he's been utilizing that as a way to support authentic assessment. And I won't steal his thunder, but he actually has new updates as of like yesterday.
Yeah.
As of yesterday, to share with you about how that is going. So really excited to hear from Ty.
Thanks, Jessica. So yeah, Jessica mentioned earlier that we're 3-4 weeks into this. Actually, for me, it's like a couple of days. So this is real time, and early reports are positive for the rubrics tool for Canvas. So hopefully I can convince some of you guys to kind of dip your foot in and see what this can do for you. So just to provide a little bit of context for the class that I'll be talking about, it's one of the core business classes with high volume. So we've got 1,000 students. There's a large lecture followed up by a recitation every week with 40 students in those. And we have several instructors across the recitation. So consistency in terms of grading is really important. And as students are sharing experiences from section to section, we're hoping that they're hearing similar things, right? Okay, so why the change? So why move from, we were using a paper rubric that we would hand back to the students, and I'll show you that here in a second, to this online system. So lack of consistency in grading across instructors was a big thing, not only in scoring, but the actual feedback, written feedback that we were providing. There was no easy way for us across sections to look at common themes. So where are the students struggling? Where can we make improvements and focus on in our teaching? And we would hand back a rubric and the student might lose it and we have nothing to refer back to. Especially for this class, it's a business communications class with multiple presentations throughout the semester. It's really great for the students to have that feedback stored electronically, where at the end of the semester you can kind of look at the body of your work and see if you improved. And for all of us, grading's a bit cumbersome. So if we can save some time, let's try to do that, right? So a couple of years ago, this was what the students were getting back. It was a piece of paper, and without going into too much detail here, it's basically broken down for a presentation in terms of content that they were covering and the delivery, the way in which they were delivering that content. So the instructor is in the back as the student is presenting, furiously writing notes, and then in the next class, the student would get that back. So one thing that's great about the rubrics tool in Canvas is now we are in the back of the room electronically inputting this data as you go. So if you're a quick typer, you can provide a lot more feedback real time to the students. So the way we've structured this rubric here is you can see from a content delivery standpoint, we have several different categories. And now the student knows within that category exactly what we're looking for. And you can click on, did the student do very well, in the middle, or very poorly, and it will populate the score for that category. In addition to the actual number score, what Rubrics in Canvas allows you to do, if you look at that green box, you click on that and you can write in extra content, okay? So it's quicker for me personally as a quick typer, and you've got it electronically stored. So what the student receives back a week later, whenever you release the results, is something that looks like this. And so it has your score in there and the feedback that you provided them. So what I would say, and we can talk more in the after session, but my recommendations to you is to look at your current assignments, and this just isn't from a presentation assignment perspective. This is great for a paper that's submitted. You could have your rubric right next to the paper and be grading it real time, adding comments that the student can get back electronically. To people's point earlier, start small. With the class that I have, we're piloting this in 3 of the sections, so we're not doing it for all 20. Early indications are very positive though. So if we're able to get to a place where we're doing it for all 20 sections, what the rubrics tool will allow us to do at the end of the semester, at the middle of the semester, is look at what are our average for this section for a specific category within the rubric. Instructor X, you're being really tough in this category. It's really not fair to your students. Let's move you in the other direction kind of thing. So that's it for the rubrics tool. Thanks.
like what Ty mentioned about, again, the starting small, but he also mentioned taking this as an opportunity to revisit your assignments in general, which if, I know in some of the classes that I've taught, once you kind of get into a routine, you kind of go back to what you're comfortable with. And this offers an opportunity to take another look at some of the assessments that you're doing and think about what do you still want to do those assessments? Are there new ways of having students show you what they've learned? And so I think embracing that opportunity is a really, really great point. So thank you, Ty, for that. And our last presenter, last but of course never, ever least, is the wonderful Melissa Beers. Missy has been teaching at Ohio State for the last 16 years. She is currently the program director for Introduction to Psychology 1100 and course coordinator for Introduction to Social Psychology 2367.01 and 3325. She trains and supervises 30 or more graduate students teaching these courses each year. And tonight, she is going to talk with you about adopting open resources in her Canvas course for Psychology 2367.01. So I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Thank you. This one? There we go. Oh, I went too fast. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so I am here to talk a little bit about our move to open source resources in the second level writing class, which we have, contrary to the advice of everybody else here tonight, we did not start small, we just jumped right in. So we are up to our eyeballs in open source right now, and we're learning as we go. I just want to put a shout out to our colleagues in the ALX program again, because they're amazing. And I learned about this program because they contacted me last spring, or actually last fall. I think they contacted me last fall. Being that I work with two fairly large gen ed courses, that's a great place to start if you want to make an impact with open source resources. So they asked me if we would be willing to take a look and see if this would fit with our courses. And I have been looking at open source materials for a while. I mean, we've actually been looking at them in my department since 2007, but we haven't really been ready to make that switch. So this really gave us an opportunity to take another look, think about it again. And so we went ahead and tried for the grant. And we just got a little exploration grant, but I think we've been pretty frugal. We've stretched those dollars really quite well. We were able to do a few things with it. First, we were able to do a nice, fairly rigorous review of open source resources that would fit with our course curriculum. And we were able to actually look at those resources against our current curriculum course map, our content map, and make sure that if we made that switch, that we would have still the same content coverage that we had with the book that we were using, and that it would still meet our learning objectives for the course, our gen ed learning objectives. We also then have been able to leverage some of those funds towards team building with the instructors teaching the course, not only at Columbus campus, but also at the regional campuses. And also we've been able to start working towards more open source resources for the writing aspect of the course that we are starting to map out for ourselves. So we were able to do a lot with that, and we had a lot of help. But I think maybe the best part of the grant that is kind of under advertised is you get all of this help and support, all this technical support from these amazing instructional designers and people who know this stuff really, really well. So they certainly enabled us to do some legwork, but having their expertise was absolutely essential. So I'll just start with the first part of our project today, which was to look at those open source resources and then to figure out how to use them, because you have these challenges when you move to open source. So how do you assign readings when your readings don't have page numbers? Have you thought about that? When you're thinking about open source, you're like, how am I going to do that? And technically, students could be using like any device. So with a book, there's a book, it's on paper, you're good. But with these open source resources, the really good ones, they are able to be put on a Nook or a Kindle, other things I don't even know. There's like all of these letters, the letters and numbers that describe the file formats. I had no idea. So how do we support students and help them understand how to use the resources? How do we ensure that everybody's really on the same page? Okay, sorry, bad pun, sorry. But how do we do that? So if you are pursuing this path, then you need expert help. Then I would strongly suggest that you talk to the experts, because the ALX team was absolutely phenomenal in helping us understand this landscape and helping us figure out a lot of things. And their instructional designers helped us figure out, how do we put this all in Canvas? Like, what do we need to put in Canvas? So they made this beautiful, wonderful template. I could never have figured this out myself. So thank you very much for that. And the best part is it has this wonderful page that they built about, here students, here's how you access your textbooks. Here, your textbooks are free. That's on the home page. Here's how you access them. And you can access them in all these different formats. So whether you have, and you want to read them on your phone, I don't know why they'd want to read them on their phone, but if they want to read them on their phone, no problem. Their iPad, their Kindle, their Android, all of these different devices. And then it gives them, I'll show you if you want to come and see it, I'll show you the page so you can see all the directions that it has for them. And then, because we did, this is another aspect of our search. So we did this search to look at the resources that are out there, and we didn't just pick one book. Because these things are open and they're kind of flexible, we actually combined resources from 2 different open source texts. So we were able to sort of pick and choose. So some books were better than others and had, you know, stronger ties to our curriculum than others, or met our needs better. And so instead of, you know, when you're picking a regular book, you have to just go with one book, right? This is the book I'm going to have. With open source, you can actually mix and match. And so we were able to come up with this nice collection, but it's across 2 different books. So how are we going to get that? Like, how are we going to say, well, just use this resource for these things and this resource for these things? Well, they made this beautiful textbook contents, you know, page for us that links directly to the relevant content in both of those sources, which is so nice. And so we didn't have to pick one source wholesale. We could mix and match, and that was great. So that goes in every site. So this is a template that you're seeing that we make available to the instructors who are teaching the course. In both 236701, which is social psychology, GE for second level writing, and also a GE for social science, and then 3325, which is social psychology for majors, for psych majors. And so it's pretty much the same content. And then this can be put in both of those courses. And the instructor actually has some leeway. They have some choices in terms of which textbook topics they assign. And so they gave us sample modules. It was like Christmas, right? Look at this, it's fantastic. So they set this whole homepage up for us and all these modules so that instructors can then further customize to meet the way that they are going to implement the course in their section, which is just great. Isn't that nice? So thank you. Thank you again, ALX team. So that's just wonderful. So if you're interested in any of this, I would certainly take a look at these grants. They're very flexible. They can be very small. So some of them are like $1,000. They go way up to $24,000. Like huge investment, small investment. I would certainly take advantage of that expertise. I would keep an open mind. Here's what I will say. Just because it's free, it doesn't mean it's bad. That also doesn't mean it's good. So, you know, you really want to take your time and look at those materials, make sure that they actually fit with your course, evaluate them in terms of, are they really going to support student learning, right? Is not just because it's free, but is this actually going to really be a good thing for students in my course? The free is great, but you want to make sure that you're not compromising the quality of your materials, right, just to go free. And so we were able to do that. I hope that you, if you're interested, will be able to do that too. So thank you very much.